Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Loan Officer Life, Hustle, Heart, and Home Ownership. This is a very special edition, and it's probably now our most frequent returning guest, Kristin Messerli. Kristin's going to take us through the latest edition of the NextGen HomeBuyer Report. I was doing some reviewing and just making sure I have my notes together, Kristin. You've been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah.
Crazy. I remember the first time it came out. So congratulations on that.
Thanks.
And thanks for jumping on here. I know you're in the middle of conference presentation, so we appreciate you spending some time with us. And guys, we're going to do this a little differently. You're not going to hear me the whole time here, which is probably a bonus for everybody. Kristin's going to take us through the latest report and share kind of the highlights. We'll make sure in the show notes you have access. Everyone has access to see the report. And of course, folks, if you're not already paying attention to FirstHome IQ, make sure you check out FirstHome IQ. We will put information in there as well. And I'm sure, Kristin, you're going to cover that. So with that, I'm going to let you drive this talk.
All right. Well, thank you so much for bringing me on. I've told you, I keep telling everybody, this is my favorite research I've ever published. I think there's some really interesting insights that are very immediately practical to the way that we do business and I think meaningful to understanding today's market. So, yeah, we've done this for 5 years. I don't even know how many reports, but around 8,000 millennial and Gen Zs that we've surveyed. And it's just kind of been building on each report, building on each other, looking a lot at trust and skepticism among millennial and Gen Z consumers. And we've done 2 of these financial literacy reports. And this one is not just looking at the knowledge gaps, although there's some interesting but not surprising ones around down payment and things like that. But we're also looking at the psychology behind that, and the distrust and some of the information gathering, like using social media and stuff like that. So I will show you guys a little bit of my favorite insights from this. And then let me just share my screen.
I might have to make you a presenter here. Let's see.
It took me a little while longer than I thought. Here we go. All right. So I've got some slides. I do have a full report, and I really encourage everybody, when you do download this, you go to firsthomeiq.com/2025 report. I know Brian will put links to this, but there is both a lengthy report and slides. Don't just look at the slides. There's some really great insights in here, and this 2-page thing, you can download that and share that at events or whatever if you want. The goal here is just to get more people aware of the education here. So please feel free to make it your own, share the content. Okay, so I wanted to highlight some of the big areas that I thought were most crucial in looking at this. One is, as I mentioned, down payment. Only 8% got the question correct, that what is the minimum down payment typically required for a conventional loan. So, that's I think it's, 42% thought it was 10%. This is not surprising, but I think it is kind of an alarm bell of this is the most basic thing. And we asked a lot of questions around. We asked the second question around down payment. Still, only half of the people got that one correct, and that's just a true/false question. There were also a lot of questions around mortgage insurance, and nobody, was able to answer those basic questions. Some people did, but yeah, some mortgage insurance questions, and so it just tells us a lot about the state of the first-time home buyer, and not really feeling like they have the basic knowledge to even begin that journey. So,
do you think that this particular question, my reaction is there's probably a lot more people that are actually closer to being ready to buy than they think they are based on their knowledge?
Exactly. So that's what I think is really important here. And we have, if you guys aren't familiar with the FirstHome IQ quiz, it's measures your understanding of buying your first home. And we had what I thought was pretty basic questions that we put together through the industry. But we've updated it just recently to try to make it as basic as possible, to make it a little bit easier, because the average score when we did this a couple of years ago was 59%. So we've improved it, but it's still to think about how many people, and the reason I bring that up is because one, it's a core part of this research, but two, if you go through that with people and share this quiz with people, social media, events, whatever, a lot of times people don't realize like, oh, I thought I needed to save 20% or definitely more than 3%. So especially for people that are in maybe higher price markets, they don't realize that they actually could buy a home today, and they just think this is totally out of reach. So yeah, part of the research in this report was looking at the FirstHome IQ quiz, validating that as an instrument to measure understanding of buying your first home. As I said, down payment was a big one. But then we started looking at some of the kind of psychology that is happening with today's home buyers. And one of the most interesting and I think really important components here was the overwhelmed consumer. So over half of consumers said that they felt overwhelmed by financial information, and over half delayed important financial decisions due to complexity. So if you look at, if you're thinking about, it's just not about only having the right knowledge, although that's clearly really important. It's also about how overwhelmed they're feeling by any kind of information. And we saw that 72% wish that financial resources were designed in a simpler, more visual way, because that kind of leading into that overwhelming piece. And then a couple of slides that I thought were really important. We're looking at, or like components of the research, we're looking at this growth in influencers as the driving force around where people go for homebuyer information and education. So we know that like in January, we saw that 40% of Gen Z were going to social media for homebuyer information, but we're seeing that increase. Now we see 71% going to TikTok for home buying information, 41% reporting that they're trusting influencers for home buying information. And what I think is interesting about all of this is that we've, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've been following trust through all of this, and trust in lenders is super low. Like it's 2 in 3 generally across all our reports. If you average, 2 in 3 say that they don't think lenders are trustworthy or reliable. That number was actually higher. Like people had less trust earlier this year, but they're trusting less in the experts and they're trusting more in their peers. So they're following influencers, social media. And it's not to say that they go to those peers or those influencers and say, like, I believe everything you say. It's just that there's a lot more information available to people. So we've moved from that like kind of expert era to the peer-to-peer revolution. So
what's interesting with that stat, Kristin, is I recall coming out of 2024 and then the mid-year JD Power study kind of affirms a similar finding in that, except I think the question there was a little bit different at JD Power. They saw trust be exponentially higher the earlier the consumer, the buyer, engaged with the lender / originator. And so it's almost like if that originator can put themselves in the place of that influencer and be involved earlier, then perhaps they can translate that into trust into the process.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think that that's interesting to think about, like, what loan officer are we referring to when someone says, I don't or I do trust the loan officer?
Yeah.
Like and also, yeah, what role when does the loan officer become the influencer? And it doesn't necessarily mean like you have to be active on TikTok. I don't think that. But I think what this tells us is that and I talk a lot about like how to build trust, but we have to understand how to build trust, and it definitely starts earlier. So that's a really great insight. Oh, and another area of this is looking at where people are going for home buying information. It's not just that they're going to Facebook and Instagram. It's like they're going to these influencers and peers, Facebook groups, they're going to Reddit, they're going to TikTok. So I think, looking at this, and this is an average of millennial and Gen Z, but yeah, like they're going to these places because they want to collect information from others that are kind of this like me version, that's where they feel that they can put their trust. And then the other area we were looking at was around AI. And so this is, we looked at AI, where they go to for home buying information, and they're going to ChatGPT. Not surprising. We saw in January, Gen Z, 35% of Gen Z were going to, or actually this is millennials and Gen Z. In August, that jumped up to 61%.
Wow.
So it's kind of, it's again, not surprising, but also astounding.
Yeah.
How much of that has shifted and kind of what that means for the way that we are approaching homebuyer information.
Well, I think about from a lender and loan officer's perspective, this is very telling because, for the last decade plus, lenders and loan officers have been focused on optimizing for Google search, right? And even YouTube. And now this is telling us that if you haven't started optimizing to show up in AI and the ChatGPT searches and inquiries, then you're going to be missing a whole big segment of buyers who are doing their research and preparation that way.
Well, and I think that what this is also saying, like that's one angle around marketing and showing up. And, but I also think that we need to look at how we are collaborating with AI and specifically AI assistants like ChatGPT. So instead of, I went to a doctor recently and he had, given me some information and he said, put this into ChatGPT, research this, and then let's talk about it at our next appointment. And I just thought that's helpful. Like if you put yourself against AI or any kind of technology, you're not going to be trusted. But even him saying that, I was like, okay, yeah. And it actually helps him. I mean, I would have been like calling him between,
right.
And so I think the same thing goes with loan officers. That's like saying, okay, how can you use these tools to continue to be the leader, and also lean into that next gen buyers' desire to verify and validate and do research on their own,
Yeah. Well, I think a great, just something that comes to mind is, if you're a loan officer and you're watching this is an idea for you to create content to teach this next generation home buyer how to create their own custom GPTs so that they can go do the research, right? And so that you're enabling them with tools, and this data is telling us they're already going here. So lean into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think also, not like one thing that this recognizes is how much of a role AI is playing in our day-to-day lives, and social media and all these things. But how do you stand out in a world like that? Where there's so much noise, there's so much information, and it's truly, we used to say information was accessible at our fingertips, but now it's like way more so.
Yeah.
And so how do you stand out? And I think that the answer is through empathy and relationships. And I think that the people that are going to really have, build a lasting business through this time are going to be the people that are focused on listening to their customers, building relationships in their community, things that have outlasted technology. That's what's been, the way that we've done things for a long time. We're just now, it's in combination with technology.
Right.
And which of course is why I think, FinLocker and tools like this are so crucial, especially at a time like that.
So I'm going to ask you for a prediction.
Yeah.
So next study will be what, January again, 26?
Yeah.
How high does this, where does this 61% go by then, do you think?
That's so funny. That's a great question. I mean, I think it has to get to the 70s.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to even imagine it going higher than that, even though I use ChatGPT all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, but yeah, it may go higher than that. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's going to be higher.
Really?
I mean, it's incredible that that's a 40+% jump within the year. And I would argue that the last 90 days have probably even spiked further. I don't know. I could see, 8 out of 10 people responding that they're using some AI tool for gathering and assessing home buying information.
That's a good point. I mean, it is a no-brainer. If you're making the biggest financial decision of your life, you kind of want to ask the smartest tool out there, I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
you want to get that feedback at least somewhat, so
Yeah.
um yeah, I agree. So a couple other things that I thought were interesting as we looked at some of the research was, and this is definitely setting the stage for future research, but I was looking at what are the primary ways that people think about money and how does that relate to the way they scored on the quiz and that type of thing. So half of people feel that money is their primary way that they relate to that is as security and stability. I definitely fall into that
Same.
realm. And then the 35% fall into the enjoy life category. And what I think is important to recognize here, and we'll hopefully like build more archetypes as we go, but this makes up, like the vast majority of people. But everybody is approaching things differently. And I think looking at what is the person in front of you, what's their goals here, and what is their primary obstacle. Like, if their goal is the security and stability, primarily, you're going to have a little bit of a different approach versus the enjoy life person and how you talk about things. Or even, I talk a lot about like asking people, questions that help you clarify how to share education, like asking the question, are you the kind of person that wants to know what time it is, or the kind of person that wants to know how the watch is made?
Right.
And that can help you, clarify. So but looking at how people approach that so that you can get into some of the different ways of delivering education. And then also a thing that has come up frequently is around confidence and their own knowledge about buying a home. And we've done a lot of research on gender and how significantly like women tend to have lower confidence when it comes to their own financial knowledge, but they perform pretty much equally when it comes to their like on the FirstHome IQ quiz. So I thought that was interesting. Women are also more skeptical, tended to be more diligent, cross-verifying information. So that was kind of the only demographic that we saw like a really big jump, other than millennial like generations. And so we include some of that information in here. But yeah, those were some of the highlights and areas that I think would be, most interesting to explore. I'm just going to look through the top 10 things here. Yeah, I think we covered all of those, but there's a lot more to dig into, and there's some kind of mini articles in the report that go into more detail there.
Can you just spend a minute and tell us just at a high level? I think you had 500 respondents in this cohort. Can you just describe maybe the demographics at a high level for us?
Yeah, so we keep the age pretty much equal across Gen Z, starting at 18, year 18, and then 18 to 22, and then we look at younger millennials and older millennials. So we're dividing those up. We didn't see a huge difference between, like the biggest difference obviously is between older millennials and Gen Z. And then we looked at a diverse group across race and socioeconomic background, income, and education. So we try to keep some of those things like pretty equal across the country. And yeah, this one was 500. The one we do annually has 1,000, starting that we'll do again in January. Let's see. This one, we did a lot more of looking at like different, using something, one demographic to see how that played into other characteristics. For example, what trust did across gender or, different demographic characteristics.
Let's spend a few minutes on the quiz, and more importantly, beyond the quiz, FirstHome IQ and the resource that you guys have developed and that you're running there. So let's start with the quiz. I know. I just got my custom quiz link yesterday. I'm excited to start sharing it out. I think you did some changes to the quiz recently. Can you just describe that again for us?
Yes, I keep forgetting to talk about this. This has been a long time coming. We've been working on this all year of updating this quiz, getting feedback from industry professionals. And as mentioned earlier, we used to have it was a 25 question quiz. And, but there were some questions in there that just, the first-time homebuyer doesn't have to know everything, what escrow means, honestly, until they're going through it. And then the loan officer can, people can explain things to them. But we tried to update this in a way that would, one, simplify some of the things, like what are just the things someone needs to know. And then two, tried to make it easier for people to take the quiz instead of, we're not trying to trick people. We're trying to we had more true false in there. We broke things up into 3 sections. And so gamifying it a little bit. And then the other cool thing is that at the end of the quiz, you get a results page, and that includes some education based on how you performed on that quiz. So and then, of course, the visual aesthetic we've updated significantly. Again, trying to always keep things simple, like clear. Really, really happy with the updates. And as ambassadors, like you talked about your personal link, anyone who is an ambassador, they get their own custom quiz link. And anyone that takes the quiz through, your link, you'll get the name, email, and results of the people that take that. So it can be used as a lead gen form, good conversation starter, a way to, and in the landing page, we have linked out to, FinLocker, key steps within FirstHome IQ, or the custom one that someone's using, and our other education video library and online courses. So it's a really comprehensive education tool, really, in a landing page.
Love it. Okay, we got a few minutes left. This is awesome, by the way. Thank you thanks again for doing this. I know, hot off the presses, you're doing literally 2 live presentations, and we're in between those. So again, thank you for that. So for those that aren't aware, and I can't believe people at this point would not be aware of FirstHome IQ, can you share kind of the mission? You're a nonprofit, almost a little bit over a year now, maybe
2 years. Yeah.
2 years. Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Time flies. So just tell us a little bit about FirstHome IQ, and then we'll talk about how people can be involved and should be involved.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are a nonprofit focused on bringing homebuyer education to the next generation. That includes basic financial literacy. We have education for schools, high schools, and colleges, a full curriculum with lesson plans, all of that. So that's free for schools. And then we have online courses, education libraries, things like that are for consumers or students, and parents often, take their kids through those platforms. And then the last way is through the industry. So we provide industry professionals with presentation materials, social media content, email templates, anything you would need to be an educator in your community that helps you win with first-time home buyers. And it also helps support the nonprofit efforts that we're doing. And some people that are involved, we have an ambassador program where you pay a fee and have access to a huge library of resources. We do have some free resources available for people as well, but that helps to fund all of the school efforts that we have going too.
Yeah. So guys, I mean, I think about the resources that are out there, and I think about what some of pay for different resources out there. The education content, Kristin, that you guys have created, and it continues to advance and evolve. Not just the content, but the tools that you use to deliver it. This is world-class financial literacy content that it's not just home ownership focused. It's you literally are armed with tools as an originator to go into your community. I mean, there's loan officers, ambassadors that are doing regular literacy education kind of work within schools with high school students. And you talk about building trust. I mean, what better way to build trust than to be that community resource for financial literacy, financial education, homeownership preparation? And you guys have armed the industry and these ambassadors, like I said, with world-class content. I mean, if a guy like me could take this content and literally go teach a financial literacy course, then you've cracked the code on that.
Yeah, we try to make it super simple for everybody. I mean, we want to simplify the things for the students. I mean, I have ADHD and feel overwhelmed, and it's hard for me to consume financial information. So I've been really passionate about making that more accessible. But then same thing with all of our, everything is more complex. I'll show you just really quickly, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
a couple, examples of kind of how we offer this. And we have, as I mentioned, we've got the things for students, again, very accessible. We've partnered with FinLocker and to offer other tools. So that's been really awesome. Again, free things for educators and parents and families as well. And people volunteer with classrooms, so we help them with that too. And then on the ambassador side, we try to build, like, the whole idea around this is that this is the industry's nonprofit. It is not just, we're not just providing things, we're collaborating with other people that do this really well. So, and that helps build trust in a market that is really skeptical. So, but yeah, so we have the quiz landing pages and event library. We have presentations for lunch and learns and outreach playbooks, digital marketing templates, AI assistants, and then leadership from other professionals that are doing this really well. So yeah, if anyone is interested in learning more about that, on our website, firsthomeiq.com/ambassador, you can sign up for an info session or just learn more about the program there.
And I wouldn't discount the power of the community groups that get together and share best practices. I pop into those as often as I can, and it's inspiring to hear how ambassadors are taking this content and finding new ways to reach, new audiences, if you will, in their communities. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely love those strategy calls. And really everything we've created has been because someone said, hey, I'm going to do this event. Hey, I'm going to do, I'm looking for something that will help me with this partnership. And so it's really cool, the collective energy around that.
Awesome. Well, Kristin, I promised I'd keep you less than 30 minutes. We're gonna hold to that. Thank you again so much for coming on and sharing. Thank you for 5 years of this amazing report and output. Gets better every time. Where are we going to find you through the rest? As we go into the fall conference season, where can people see you?
Well, I do want to give a special thanks to National MI for sponsoring these reports year after year. It has been so, a huge passion of mine. And I think really exciting to see where it goes. So I will be I'm in Boise right now for the MBA, but I won't be when this is published. Right. But yeah, then I'm forgetting where I'm going, but I'll be somewhere every week. So
yeah, I made
the National MBA though. Are you going to be there?
I will. Yes.
Okay. Great.
Awesome. Well, we'll catch up for sure.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Kristin, thank you so much. You'll be back, I'm sure, back on the show. Thanks, Kristin. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Come back again next week for the next episode of Loan Officer Life.